Hello everyone. Our lesson for today is present perfect tense. It's a lesson from your book Action Pack. They have entered centuries the title of the unit. You also can find this lesson in your worksheet from page 3 to 5, and it will be attached inshallah on the website. Student book page 63 and 64. First of all, I'm gonna talk about the outcomes of this lesson. What are we going to discuss? Number one, I will revise the form of the tense, affirmative, negative, and question in the three cases. Number two, I'm gonna discuss with you to recognize the usages of present perfect simple. Why do we use a present perfect tense and the usages of this tense. Number three, to practice the tense with some expressions that we will use. Now here I've mentioned all of the exercises that you have in your workbook and student book about present perfect tense. You can check them. Now, first of all, I will discuss the form of present perfect. The form in affirmative case, we will start with subject plus verb to have, has or have. Have if the subject he, have if the subject I, we, they, you, and has he, she, it. Plus past participle or verb 3. For example, I have tried sushi before. In the negative case, we will just add not. So it will be subject plus a have not or haven't, has not or hasn't plus past participle. If I want to make it, or if I want to have a question form or interrogative form, we will start with the auxiliary verb have or has, plus subject plus past participle or verb 3, the switching between verb, subject and auxiliary verb. Have you tried? Now, after this this slide and discussing the form of the tense, let's move to discuss the main concept in present perfect. The main concept in present perfect, as you can see, I just put here a picture for an experiment and for this chemist. The experiment, a present perfect experiment, it's about linking between present and past. So present perfect is that tends to link between these two tenses, which is present and past. So present perfect is a linker between past and present, and we will see how what does that mean. But this is the main concept of present perfect. As you notice here, I have the form of present perfect. Here the affirmative, negative, question, and some expressions or some adverbs we will use in the present perfect: ever, never, since, for, already, just yet, and etc. We will use different adverbs or expressions in the present perfect. Now, first example with first use. The first example here, I have lost my book. I can't find it. Why do I use present perfect in this sentence? Because I want to emphasize on the verb itself, on the action itself, or the result of this action, that I lost my book and I can't find it. So the first usage of present perfect to express a finished action when time isn't important. I don't care about time. I don't want to know when that happened, but the main idea, the result of the action is more important than time. So that's why here I used present perfect. This is the first usage of present perfect to emphasize on the result of the action itself, not the time of the action. Now let's move to the next use. For example, the girls have just left school. I want you to look at the word just here. When I use just, which means I'm talking about recent finished or completed action. Just before a few minutes, I finished this. So this is the second usage of present perfect. If I want to talk about a recent finished action or a recent completed action that just happened, and maybe you can see the effect of the action or the consequence of the action, I will use present perfect, such as this one. The girls have just left the school. You can see them that they are just out of the school. So this is the second usage of present perfect. The third one is to express an action that started in the past and it is still continuing now and maybe in the future. For example, what does that mean? Let's check the example here. Ali has driven his car since 1990, which means that he started driving his car from 1990 and until now, and maybe for the next year and after the next year, and etc. So this is the third usage, or in this usage I will use present perfect to indicate or to express that this action happened in the past, or started in the past, sorry, but it still exists. It exists now and maybe for the future time. Just like this example, I lived in Amman since 2009. So this is another example about talking about an action started in the past and is still continuing now. Now here we have two examples for two different usages. When I say I have spoken to her several times, which means many times, which means repeated action. So here I'm talking about a repeated action which happened in different times or at different times. So I want to tell you that I've talked to this person in different times, maybe in the morning and evening and afternoon time. So in this case, when I want to show or to indicate a repeated action that happened at different times, I will use present perfect. The other usage here, archaeologists have discovered an underwater city in the Pacific. So here in this example, I'm talking about a city or discovering a city underwater in the Pacific Ocean. So discovering, which means it's an achievement. I did something great, important thing. So to express an achievement, I will use present perfect. Like this example, the archaeologists have discovered an underwater city. That's why I used present perfect. The next slide will be about other usages of present perfect. Actually, we have many usages for this tense. I will talk about here about life experience. Life experience. How or what does that mean? when I say have you ever, when I use this form, this question form by using the expression ever, which means I'm talking about something that you've done in your whole life as a life experience, something special. So I will say, have you ever seen a UFO before? Have you ever seen that? So have you ever seen a dolphin? Have you ever eaten, let's say, Japanese food, for example? Uh, so all of these examples, it's about life experience by using the form have you ever. Maybe I will say I have never seen or I have never done this, which means I'm expressing that I don't have this life experience in my life. Now I'm gonna do with you an exercise. This exercise to match the sentences from 1 to 5. We have 5 sentences with 5 uses or usages. We will match this sentence. For example, number 1, it's for which usage, or what is the suitable reason that I use present perfect in this sentence. I'm going to start with number 1. We have gone to the beach many times. Many times. I want you to focus on this one. Many. Many times, which means repeated action. I've done this different times or many times. Which one, which usage for this sentence, which is this one? I will write the answer. So an action that is being repeated between the past and the present, this is the usage for this sentence. I just focused on this part many times, so it's repeated action. Number 1. This one for number 1. Now, number 2, it has rained a lot this month. So when I say it has rained a lot this month, which means that this month maybe hasn't finished yet. So it's talking about this one, an action that has not yet been finished. So this is for sentence number 2. Okay. Sentence number 2. So sentence number 2, it's about an action that hasn't yet been finished. Like this example, it has rained a lot this month, which means that this month maybe hasn't finished yet. We're still in the month, during the month. Now, number 3, she has lost her wedding ring. Oh, it's a big action. So here I'm emphasizing on the time. No. Do I care about when it happened? No. I just care about losing the wedding ring. So it's about, for this one, an action when time was not an important aspect. So this is for number 3. Number 3. Now let's move to number 4. I have lived in the United States since 1990. So I'm talking about an action that started in the past. So the word since, which means it's still until now and maybe for the future. So it's continuing in the future maybe. So this sentence for this usage for number 4. So I have lived in USA or United States. It's an action. It's an action that happened or that started in the past and still continuing in the future. Now, number 5, I have just finished my internship at the museum, which means that I'm talking about here just, and just it's a recent action. So number 5 for this usage, which is it's about, okay, it's about number 5. It's an action that happened and that was completed in the recent past. And this is the important point. Recent past, but how do we know it's about recent past? Because I've just used just. This is number 5. Number 5. So we've answered this exercise about the present perfect, and we've discussed all of the examples and why do we use these examples in the present perfect. Now let's move to the next the next exercise. It's about writing the correct forms of the verbs that we have 3 forms or 3 verbs. Between the brackets, discuss the reason for your choice. Why do we choose present, or why do we choose present perfect to answer or to change this verb? Number 1, I lose my purse. Now, when I want to use present perfect in this sentence, why do I use present perfect? Because I'm talking about losing my purse, so I'm emphasizing on the result of the action, that I'm out of my money now, I'm out of my important stuff in my purse. So emphasizing on the result of the action, and the action itself is more important than the time. That's why I will use present perfect. So I will answer it in this way. I will say, I've lost my purse to emphasize on the action itself, not the time. The time isn't important in this sentence. Number 2, she, between the brackets, watched this show 3 times this week. So when I say she watched the show 3 times, which means it's a repeated action, that watching the show for many times or 3 times. So to talk about an action that that has been repeated for many times, I will use present perfect. So I will say, she has watched this show 3 times this week. The last one, it's a question form. You ever visit England? Why do I use present perfect in this? One, because the word or the expression ever indicates the life experience, to talk about your life experience, that you've done this in your life. Have you done this or not? So I will ask this question. I will say, have you ever visited England? So I'm talking about your experience. Have you been in this place? Have you ever seen England and the cities in England? So it's about your life experience. Now we will talk about the next slide will be about the conclusion of this lesson. In this lesson, we've discussed these usages in present perfect tense. We've talked about finished action, recent completed action. Sometimes we have, when we talk about unfinished action, during, from the past until now, we've done an action, multiple actions at different time. For example, I have seen David several times, so repeat the action. I've done this many times. Maybe changes over time. Achievement, such as man has walked on the moon, when we talk about an achievement or expresses an achievement. And if we talk about a life experience, have you ever eaten sushi, for example? So I will use the present perfect. I hope that you enjoy your lesson for today. See you soon. Bye bye.